What could possibly happen in the morgue that would leave everyone in disbelief? What could a corpse on the autopsy table do to reveal exactly what happened to it? Can a dead body seek revenge on those who wronged it in life? And what about the 4 bodies that arrived together, one of them with strange markings carved into its back? Mysterious knocks, the sounds of animals, unnatural whispers calling out, only for nothing to be there. Strange occurrences are common in the morgue, and the doctors have almost grown used to them. A corpse suddenly moving its hand, a heartbeat that shouldn't be there, involuntary reactions that defy logic. But no matter how used to it they are, some movements, some signs, should never happen. The corpse twitching, shifting slightly, or releasing strange noises. Those are all things the doctors are used to. They've seen it before. But what isn't normal is when bodies arrive at the morgue with their demons still attached. From the moment certain corpses cross the threshold, something changes. Strange things start happening. Many of the victims who died under mysterious circumstances bring their secrets with them. And as soon as their bodies enter the morgue, the atmosphere shifts. At night, those inside hear whispers, low, chilling voices calling out, though they know for certain they are alone. Sometimes, someone knocks on the door, but when they open it, there's nothing but emptiness staring back. Of course, in a place with over 200 corpses at any given time, eerie events are bound to happen. But what isn't? They found her there, and it contradicted everything the doctor had assumed. When he examined her body, he discovered 4 strange puncture wounds, 2 in her abdomen and 2 more near her chest, perfectly aligned. The odd part? These weren't knife wounds, and even more bizarre was the fact that she was still alive when they found her. The wounds were shallow, and she hadn't bled out. The doctor, puzzled, couldn't make sense of how she had died. But as he was examining her stiff, unmoving body, something unexpected happened. Her arm suddenly straightened and lifted up. The doctor realized, to his horror, that the area where her arm had moved was a spot for an injection. He hadn't noticed it earlier. Upon closer inspection, the doctor discovered that she had been injected with a potent drug, a high overdose of something. What drug? The question lingered in his mind as he realized she had been using it regularly. It turned out she had been scheduled for a routine liposuction surgery, but things went horribly wrong. The doctor, by mistake, administered a much higher dose of anesthesia than required. The girl never woke up. Panicked and overwhelmed with guilt, the doctor and his colleagues decided to hide their mistake. They dumped her body in the desert, hoping it would decompose and be forgotten. But the truth eventually surfaced. An investigation revealed that a girl had reported her friend missing after she went in for a liposuction procedure. And it didn't take long before the authorities connected the dots. The doctor, terrified of facing the consequences, was caught for his role in the cover-up. The next case was even more bizarre. This time, the body was from a woman who had apparently fallen from a high floor. To everyone, it looked like a straightforward suicide, but there were strange details that didn't add up, especially when the doctor who was involved had a prior history with the case. The girl was known to have suffered from depression and was quite withdrawn. She didn't like socializing and kept to herself, especially during a time when she was experiencing tensions with her family. Given her struggles, no one suspected anything strange. It seemed like a clear case of suicide, brought on by the overwhelming pressures she had been facing. But the doctor who was examining the body knew this girl well. Something about the situation felt off to her, and she began to sense that the corpse in front of her was trying to communicate. The unsettling thing was that the doctor could feel it, like the body was speaking to her, telling her, "I didn't commit suicide." Without any warning, the doctor blurted out to everyone in the room, "Look at her nails!" When they examined them, they were broken, as if she had desperately tried to claw her way out, or perhaps tried to hold on to something in her final moments. The realization hit them all. This wasn't a suicide. Something far darker had happened to this girl. The question now was, what? And who was responsible? She had clung to the railing or the place from which she had fallen, trying desperately to save herself. After further investigations, it was revealed that the girl hadn't taken her own life at all. She had been murdered. The case took another dark turn, and this time, it was the death of a child, allegedly poisoned. Now, this story is one that might make you think twice about your own family, especially if you're dealing with any unresolved issues. The child who had mysteriously died was brought to the hospital. Doctors immediately suspected poisoning, but when the autopsy was done, the report said no traces of poison were found in the child's body. According to the hospital, the child had died of natural causes, with no signs of foul play. However, the authorities weren't convinced, and they decided to reopen the case. A doctor accompanied the investigation team to examine the child's body again. Upon closer inspection, that's when the doctor had a strange feeling, a deep, unsettling instinct telling him something was terribly wrong. The child's death wasn't ordinary. It didn't feel right. Something in the doctor's gut told him that there was more to the story. He took a risk, deciding to investigate further. Even though all the tests had shown negative results, with no traces of poison or anything unusual in the child's body, the doctor felt compelled to act. He took all the negative samples and kept them hidden, despite knowing that doing so could put him in serious trouble. But the image of the child's face haunted him, and the feeling that something wasn't right lingered in his mind. Determined to get to the truth, the doctor spent sleepless nights going through the reports, thoroughly re-examining every detail. After some time, he discovered something chilling. The poison used to kill the child wasn't detectable immediately. It took time to show up in the body. This revelation led the doctor to confirm what he had been fearing. The child had been murdered, and it wasn't just a tragic accident. The doctor's investigation into the child's mysterious death revealed something unsettling. Indeed, the boy had been poisoned. As the doctor dug deeper, he discovered that the culprit behind the poisoning was none other than the child's cousin. The motive? Inheritance. A bitter inheritance dispute had driven the cousin to kill, and the unfortunate boy had paid the price. His brother, however, had managed to survive the plot. While this case might seem strange, it was just one of many bizarre and eerie incidents that occurred in the morgue. There were bodies that refused to be autopsied for reasons unknown. Why, no one could explain until the story of one particularly strange body surfaced. The first story involved a corpse of a sorcerer, someone deeply involved in dark arts, magic, and occult practices. The authorities had planned to extract some samples from this body, but it had only recently been buried. They called the gravekeeper to assist with the exhumation. As the gravekeeper began the unsettling task of digging up the body, the atmosphere shifted. Something about this corpse felt wrong, like a dark force lingered over it, refusing to let it be disturbed. There were whispers in the air, and a sense of unease that seemed to creep up the spines of everyone present. What happened next was terrifying, and no one could explain it. The moment the gravedigger touched the body in the coffin, something unnatural began to happen. He was struck with violent spasms, his eyes bulging out of their sockets, and he screamed as though he was possessed. It was as if the very spirit of the corpse had taken control of him. In an instant, he bolted upright and ran, not stopping for anything. Despite the efforts of those around him to stop him, no one could. He ran as if he were being chased by some invisible force, and no one knows where he went after that. The last time anyone saw the gravedigger, he was in the middle of an intense seizure, his eyes wide and unblinking, as if he was locked in some horrific trance. He ran away at full speed, and despite numerous people trying to catch up with him, none of them succeeded. To this day, no one knows what became of him. He vanished, without a trace. I still ask about him to this day, but no one has seen him since that horrifying night. The next incident is said to have occurred at the Zaynham Morgue. One night, an unusual and terrifying occurrence unfolded, and the staff there was left in shock. The details of what happened are still shrouded in mystery. The day 4 bodies entered the morgue at once, it was nothing short of disturbing. A mother and her 3 children, all dead under mysterious circumstances. Anyone who saw the mother's face would immediately notice something unsettling about her. Her expression alone made it clear that she had been involved with dark forces, witchcraft, and the like. According to the doctors, there was something in the way her face looked that signaled her connection to such things. But it wasn't just her frightening face. When they examined her, the back of her body had a large, intricate chart engraved upon it, symbols, numbers, and strange words that didn't make sense, like something from an occult ritual. The most unsettling part was that the body seemed to resist being examined. It started to move on its own, causing terrifying vibrations on the table that sent chills down everyone's spine. At one point, her hand shot out from the dissection table, nearly reaching the people standing nearby. But it didn't stop there. The moment the team tried to move the bodies for a thorough examination, strange things kept happening, as if the spirits of the dead were trying to send a message. The doctors brought in scalpels to begin the autopsy. But the moment the blade touched the skin, it snapped in 2. Even the saw they used to cut through bone malfunctioned the moment it neared her body. The medical team, undeterred, pushed forward with determination. They had to know what happened. After considerable effort, the doctor finally uncovered the truth. The mother had died from strangulation, and the force used was so brutal that it appeared as though 3 people had been involved in choking her simultaneously. But the real horror lay in her children. The condition of the 3 kids was far more disturbing than anyone could imagine. The youngest, only a few days old, bore marks of severe abuse. His umbilical cord had been torn away violently, and there were deep bruises all over his tiny body. What made it even more chilling was that the same occult symbols, the same strange chart, which had been drawn on the mother's back, were also etched into his. It was a twisted connection, one that signaled something far darker than anyone could have anticipated. The second son's back also revealed strange symbols, but they were different from those on the mother, the youngest child, and the older brother. As for the eldest son, his cause of death was poisoning, but the symbols etched into his back were unlike any of the others. However, it didn't stop there. The third victim was a young girl who died from a heart attack. So far, everything seemed explainable, though unsettling. But what truly shocked everyone was that these bodies had been dead for a long time, decaying for hours to the point of nearing full decomposition. The scariest part? The one responsible for this gruesome act was their uncle. When the investigators went to his house to confront him, they discovered something far worse. He had also died, and it had been 20 days since his death. The most terrifying revelation, however, was yet to come. The horrifying way in which they had been disposed of left everyone present in shock. At first, the authorities believed the case was a matter of honor. Perhaps the uncle had learned of his sister's illicit relationship and the child she had from it, and decided to end their lives. However, when the eldest brother saw the situation, He lost his mind, took poison, and turned himself into the police. But the truth was far darker than anyone could have imagined. The doctor began to uncover terrifying details about the uncle's actions, things no one should ever witness. After relentless investigation, it was revealed that the uncle had a twin brother living abroad who had just returned to Egypt recently. The authorities immediately summoned him for questioning, and under intense pressure, he finally confessed. The truth came out when the uncle, under intense questioning, confessed that his sister and brother were involved in black magic and sorcery. He revealed that they had always tormented him throughout his life, destroying his happiness. Unable to bear it any longer, he decided to leave Egypt. Once he stood on his own feet abroad, he vowed to return and take revenge on them. Our last story is one of revenge, revolving around a man with a simple life, but his siblings had always been unjust to him, making his life unbearable. He endured constant mistreatment and suffering. The pain and despair led him to die of a broken heart. The terrifying part came when, after being transported to the hospital, and just as the coroner was preparing to write his report, the workers heard something strange. The dead man seemed to be speaking. He was laughing in a hysterical way, which made the situation terrifying and unbearable. At first, no one understood what was happening, but after a short time, it became clear that what was happening was an act of revenge. The siblings who had tormented him had also ended up in the same morgue when their house caught fire, and he said that their spirits were responsible. They had done this to them as revenge for the wrongs they had done to him, causing his death from a broken heart. All the stories I've told you so far are from the perspective of doctors, some of whom were in the morgue at the time these incidents happened. These types of stories are frequently shared by doctors who work in morgues, as many have encountered similar events where the bodies seem to show strange behaviors or reveal unsettling truths. The way people die, especially in cases where they've experienced inhumane deaths or have been wronged, is a topic of much debate. Many believe that the spirits of these people, especially those who suffered terribly, try to show the way they died in order to help identify the person responsible. Some people think this could be coincidental, while others firmly believe that the deceased are trying to communicate, especially if they were wronged or their deaths were unjust. It's scientifically proven that after death, the brain doesn't immediately stop functioning 100%. The centers for hearing, vision, and consciousness can remain active for a while, meaning that a person may still be aware of their surroundings. This is why it's possible to observe a deceased person seemingly interacting with their environment, like appearing to say goodbye, even though they've passed away. This phenomenon has intrigued many and sparked further discussions about the nature of life and death, as well as the possibility of an afterlife or lingering spirits. He might be smiling because he feels his family around him, but what could be the reason for a corpse to move its arm or do something like I mentioned to you? And don't forget that all the stories I've told you were from doctors, and some of them were written in books and novels as events that actually happened. Also, don't forget that I'm just sharing these stories with you, and you have the freedom to believe whether they happened or not. So I want to know your opinion in the end. Do you think things like that could happen in the morgue? Could a body make those movements or show things to those present to reveal how it was killed? Let me know if you'd like any adjustments.